Michael Jordan said it best, right? Like when he threw so many shots, he was more of a failure than a success, right? He wanted that because in order to become a success, you had to constantly fail. I don't think people understand that, and they think of failure as this thing of like, I never want to be a failure and I want to be perfect. And I feel like a lot of kids feel like that these days. But the idea of introducing failure as something that's part of life and that's something that you have to go through constantly and as something that is a have to rather than a I don't want to is something that really is really inherent in getting better. Hi, I'm Kathy Sacoulas, and welcome to another episode of the Black Belt Parenting Podcast. Today, we're going to talk about one of my favorite topics, which is perseverance and grit. In the martial arts and just basically in life, I think this is one characteristic that can really develop a child to be mentally strong and to kind of get through all of the challenges and obstacles that they're inevitably going to face in life. And in the martial arts, it's one of the qualities that you naturally get, and it's instilled in you just purely by being part of it and continuing on in the journey. So perseverance, just for definition purposes, is really the characteristic of sticking with things through it until the end or completion, right? So a lot of people will just use an excuse to quit a lot, and perseverance is that characteristic that kind of drives you to get through and finish whatever you started. And grit is what gets you through it. So grit is the courage, the resolve, and the strength of character that results from perseverance and actually helps you persevere along in other areas of your life. So people who have grit are those people that kind of have that natural ability to kind of stick things through and persevere. So they're kind of like sisters to each other. So martial arts has always had this characteristic, like I said earlier, of developing perseverance and grit in our students, and only for those students who stick through the entire process. And one of the things, just as of late in the world, I feel like things just come a lot more quickly to people. So this idea of like immediate gratification is something that counters perseverance, and it's a really hard quality to attain if you're constantly gratified and constantly getting rewarded for things without effort. And so in the martial arts, one of the things that we like to promote is persevering through things, and how we develop that in our students is through a variety of ways. Namely, the first one being that development of skill requires a lot of time. And we are really process-driven versus value-driven, meaning that we like to reward the students based on the process rather than rewarding them with like participation trophies or constantly belting them, like every month, or striping them at every time that we can. Martial arts is really about coming to class consistently and developing your skill over time. And the benefits can only be achieved through that. One of the big errors that people make with the martial arts is comparing it to sort of like a gym situation where they think that you can just join, and come here and there and get the benefits out of it. Truly, if you're going to get any benefits out of anything, you're going to commit to it for a long period of time. And one of the errors that I always have to kind of fix in the beginning during the introductory process with parents especially is to let them know that they're signing on for a course of study, similar to school. You're never going to get the benefits of school if you don't apply yourself and commit yourself to the program wholeheartedly, right? So with the martial arts, when we sign people up for memberships, it really is reminding them that it's an educational process and that they have to commit for a certain period of time in order to see, benefits. Minimally 6 months, right? If you want to see like the minimum amount of benefits out of the program, you have to commit for that 6-month period. And then after that, we ask you to commit for longer and longer periods, just because we understand that it is a process. And we like to focus on the journey part of the martial arts, right? I think the most fruitful parts of martial arts happens within the journey of the process and not particularly in the destination. My husband will often joke that, I could buy a black belt from the store. It's only $5. But when I hand you that black belt, will it be worth the black belt that you have worked for 10, 12 years? Is it the same value, right? The belt that he just purchased and gave to you is not going to be the same as the belt that you worked hard for. So really, the belt is not really where the value is, right? It's what the belt represents. So for us, we really like to focus on what got you there, and we like to emphasize that whole journey process. And one of the things that I constantly have to have conversation with parents about is really trusting in that journey process and really leaning into it, right? And not focusing so much on when your child is testing or when your child gets their belt or looking at them compared to other children, because it really is individualized based on their own personal journey and their own personal process and personality. The other way that we like to focus on perseverance and how we kind of develop that skill is as we gradually move them through the different phases of training at the school. We're looking at, upping the level of intensity of their training and how they're persevering through those, gradual levels of intensity, whether that be through physical fitness exercises or through sparring. It really tests the individual to see how they're managing sort of like the struggles and growth. So just based on testing your skill through sparring, when I started sparring, it was really a difficult entry process because, getting hit and feeling that emotional, it's not just like a physical hit, it's that emotional hit to your well-being as well. It's really jarring. And I see that when kids are going through that process, it's not even like hard sparring, it's really just that initial part of contact. It's a really difficult sort of increase in intensity. And it sort of happens pretty fast, right? Whether they're ready or not really depends on their mental fortitude. And some kids are able to get through it quickly, and some kids need some more time. For myself, it took a little bit more time. And yes, I did get emotional. But that little leap in intensity and the sparring and the introduction of it really tested my perseverance and my grit. Right? I could at that point, and I've seen some people quit at that point because they're like, listen, this isn't for me. This isn't what I signed up for. But if you are able to get through that and persevere through that initial sort of jarring experience, it really propels you to the next level in your training. And I feel like the meat of your training really happens here. I tell people in the foundations level, it's like you're learning how to walk and you're learning your basic skills and you're by yourself and you're independent. And you're kind of just learning the movements and automatic responses that you want to develop. They don't really become automatic until you hit this next level of training where you hit that level of contact. But you have to persevere through that sort of emotional test and physical test first. If you've never experienced it before, it is really upsetting, right? And then when you get through it and you constantly are presented with it, then you become more accustomed to it and you're able to react more appropriately and use those automatic responses that you've practiced in your phase 1 of training. So that perseverance through that initial struggle period becomes key in you becoming successful and moving up in rank in those levels. Not just in rank, but in skill as well. And then when you're able to get through that, the confidence that builds from kind of getting through that period makes you feel like a better martial artist and makes you more confident going out in the real world using those self-defense skills. So that part is key. And a lot of people think it's an indicator of when you should quit rather than thinking of it as a growing experience to get to the next level. When we introduce sparring or we're introducing more intensity in the levels of your training, really you're ready for it because we know that that's the time that you're ready to do it. But the one ask that we have is that you're able to persevere through that initial uncomfortability. And that is where the gold lies, right? So if you're able to kind of lean into the discomfort, then you're going to be able to get through properly. So in martial arts, we're introducing this at several different levels in your training, right? Whether it's going through the phase 1 to phase 2 level, or you're moving to the phase 2 to phase 3, or you're actually adding different martial arts to your arsenal. So some students may come in, just doing kickboxing, and then they get comfortable within the kickboxing realm. And then here comes Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and you add that in, and then you add another level of discomfort. But you have to be willing to get through that level of discomfort and persevere in order to kind of become a more well-rounded martial artist. So in the martial arts, we're constantly adding those aspects of discomfort so that you're growing in your perseverance and your ability to deal with sort of obstacles and struggles, and then also getting you to the next level. It's inherent in what we do, and it's golden in martial arts. I don't know if there's any other thing that you can compare it to, because martial arts kind of, every day that you walk into that dojo, you're going to be presented with some sort of discomfort, and you have to be able to get through it. And so that constant repetition and the constant practice of it really lends to your development of perseverance and grit, but also to the development of your self-confidence like nothing else. And then these continued trials for you really add to your level of having to deal with constant failure. I don't know if there's any other place. I feel like Michael Jordan said it best, right? Like when he threw so many shots, he was more of a failure than a success, right? And he wanted that because in order to become a success, you had to constantly fail. I don't think people understand that, and they think of failure as this thing of like, I never want to be a failure and I want to be perfect. And I feel like a lot of kids feel like that these days. Some kids walk in and they just want to be good right away, because of this constant immediate gratification. But the idea of introducing failure as something that's part of life and that's something that you have to go through constantly, and as something that is a have to rather than a I don't want to, is something that really is really inherent in getting better. So, when you're sparring and you're constantly getting hit by that left hook, are you going to get defeated by it? Or are you going to, listen, I have to figure out ways to not get hit with that left hook anymore, so developing the defenses so that you're not getting hit by that same offensive technique. But the failure of that and understanding like I'm not going to get emotional because I got hit, I'm just going to figure out a way to get through it, is very powerful. And it's something that you have to constantly repeat over time. In the martial arts, like there's always going to be something that's going to cause you to fail, in that sense. And you're going to have to problem solve your way out. And one of the really greatest things about martial arts is this whole idea of problem solving. And no matter what martial art you're doing, whether it's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or Thai boxing or Jeet Kune Do or whatever you're looking to do, there's always going to be somebody who's better than you, or just somebody who gets in on you and is able to throw a technique or get it to submission on you, and you have to problem solve your way out. That whole idea of problem solving, again, we talked about this in previous episodes, builds up your neural pathways so that you become more resilient and you can persevere through future obstacles, right, and future challenges. So the resourcefulness that you attain for persevering through obstacles is gold. It's so easy these days to find your solutions to your problems just like, intellectually, but to like have it inherently and sort of like instinctively come out in you so that it becomes a natural part of your process of being is something that has to be developed over time and has to be practiced. I think the number one thing with perseverance is that you have to be able to deal with a level of discomfort. And if you're not able to deal with it, the go-to is to quit. Right? So in martial arts, what I'm really proud of is that the students that stick with it and who are able to kind of finish till the end all have this idea of perseverance and grit, and they're able to kind of weather any storms that are, thrown upon them. And I think parents in general are looking to develop this in their kids because it's what's going to get you through life, right? Because life is full of challenges and obstacles. So when we're talking about parenting and when it comes to perseverance and grit, I think that this is really applicable at home, right? All of the things that we apply in the martial arts can be applied at home. We just have to do it in a different way, and as parents, we're the first kind of education in the way of showing them how to persevere through things and, testing them and making sure that they're ready for the real world. So we have to be the ones that kind of present them with these opportunities and show them how to navigate them. One of the first things that we have to do, I think, as parents is to encourage them to be independent in their life. So in their activities of daily living, right, instead of, doing all the things for them, encouraging them to tie their shoes, right, to make their food, to make their bed, to do their laundry, all of those things developmentally through the stages of their life, like encouraging them to do that so that they persevere through struggle. The first struggles in a kid's life is really, tying your shoes is pretty hard, right? But once they achieve that and they're able to do it, it really lends to their self-confidence. But they have to persevere through many failures in order to achieve that success, right? It's such a simple task, but it can lead to a lot of independence, and it can lead to the time and effort that they're going to need to persevere through other things in their lives. So as they get older, obviously, you increase their, the requirements for what they need to do, right? It's almost like a challenge, right? So like my kid's 15 now. Now I've made her responsible for her little sister, to get her places, to take care of her, because I know that she's capable, but also I want her to figure out, now she's not just taking care of herself. She's got to start taking care of other people too. It goes in line with developmentally where they're at, that they have to persevere and kind of navigate things. And you can present those challenges to them in different ways. You can get creative with it, whether it be with a toy like a Lego figure, right? Or a game, even a video game. How do you persevere and get to the next level? I'm not against that either. I think that teaches you a lot too. But all of those things really teach like perseverance and not just being like, I can't do it, I'm just going to quit. Those challenges really help your kids achieve and get past and achieve grit, right? And persevere to the end. The second thing I think that parents should do, and I think that we do in the martial arts, is we encourage the kids and we praise their efforts rather than the results. So again, like talking about that black belt that my husband was like, I could purchase this for you, right? I could buy you a trophy, right? Or I could buy you something, but what if you earned it? Talking about that whole earning process and how the kids are working hard to achieve things, that's the gold, right? So talking to your kids about the effort that they're putting in or the time that they're putting in, regardless of the effort that comes out, is very powerful for them because they are not just trying to please you with the results. They're working hard and they're developing the grit and the perseverance for themselves. So that effort-based praise goes a long way. And saying, are you proud of you, right? And not just them doing things so that, they get the praise from you of like, you did a really good job. Like it is about the effort that it took to get there. So, turning your praise from, it's great that you got that A, right? Because how did you get that A? Did you cheat to get that A? Because I could praise you for that A, but if you got it in the wrong way, then you're praising the wrong thing, right? Praising the effort that it took to get there, praising the studying, the time management, the effort to gather people to help you study. All of those things will really help them persevere and understand that, it is about the effort and less about the results. And then, not finally, but I think this is a really big one, is like you. Who are you being in your life? Are you role modeling how to navigate your obstacles and the struggles in your life? Are you a quitter? Are you quitting when things get tough, right? Your kids are watching you. So showing them that struggle is part of life and how you're getting through it is very powerful. So if your kids are seeing you struggle but get through it and emotionally have the fortitude to kind of stick things out through till the end, that's going to be so much more powerful than you talking about it. There's a lot of lecturing going on in parenting, and I think sometimes I have to stop myself too in telling my kids what the right thing is to do and just be it, right? If I am that, then they will see it and they'll see that the power is in figuring things out and finding ways and solutions to get through your problems and not giving up when the going gets tough. For my kids, I feel like has been more powerful than me lecturing or my husband lecturing. And the problem-solving aspect of it now has become something where my kids are like, okay, what do we do now? We have to figure it out. And us working together as a team to become more solution-minded really helps us persevere through any challenges that come before us. And then for parents, as a martial arts teacher, what I often see is parents will put kids in activities, and they'll just dabble, do different things. And it's okay to try things. I'm really fine with that. I think it's important to figure out what your kids want to do. But if the activity requires you to sign up for a year or 6 months, finish that time, right? Allow your kids to go through the process of that activity to really figure out if it's something that they want to do. Because if you're only doing it for a month at a time, it doesn't give you a good idea of what that activity is, and it doesn't allow your child to immerse themselves in the activity and understand what it's going to take for them to completely fulfill the requirements of it. Whether it's swim or dance or martial arts or whatever you're choosing for your child, commit to that time, let your child know about the commitment, and have them finish it until the end. Of course, you can communicate if there's struggles in between, but it's important that when you commit to something, that you finish it through. That's the real meaning of perseverance, right? Not everything in life is going to be easy, whether it's school or your job, but you have to commit for the time period you said you were going to do. That's integrity, right? And when you teach your kids that, they'll be able to understand, like, I said I was going to do this, I'm going to finish it to the end, and who knows, once they get to that period where it gets really tough and they get through it, that's where they're going to really develop themselves into the individuals that are able to persevere and problem solve and figure things out. So instead of dabbling and then quitting when the kids are like, I don't want to do this anymore, right? As a parent, it's really important for you to be like, we committed for this period of time, let's finish it. And not let their emotions from day to day guide you. Oftentimes parents and kids will be like, she didn't really want to come today. And, my answer is always like, do you want to go to work every day? There's going to be days where you don't want to do things, or you had a bad night of sleep, or you had a bad day at school, or something happened, and you're not going to want to come. With our adult program, 90% of the success of the students has to do with them just getting to the studio or to the dojo. It is get there. That's it. If you get there, we'll do our job, and 100% of the time they have a great class. But it's just getting to that point where, like, I'm just going to get there. And sometimes I make a deal with the kids. It's like, for the next month, don't give your mom a hard time about coming here. Just put on your gi, put on your belt, get in the car, and just get here. That's all I'm asking. And don't complain. Just go. It's just like everything else. You're just going to make the process a little bit more harder when you start complaining. And, it's going to add to the negativity of the situation if you're talking about, dragging and getting there. Like, just do it. It's so powerful, right? And then finally, the last thing that I think is really important as parents, instead of fixing things for our kids and being the ultimate solution and a way out and allowing them to quit, support them through their challenges. The successes that we see at the school have to do with the kids who are up against a lot of challenges. We have kids whose parents don't invest emotionally into the school and who don't communicate with us when it comes time to challenges at home or challenges on the training floor. We don't know what's going on, so we can't help. But those parents that come into my office or talk to Miss Tara, or talk to Sifunik, those people that come in and discuss the challenges that are happening, whether it be on the training floor with the school or outside of the school, when we're able to navigate as a team throughout those challenges and help the kids overcome those challenges, is when we see success in the child. Not just with the achievement of the next rank, but also with their emotional well-being, their mental fortitude, their mental strength, their grit, and their perseverance. So those struggles should be expected. The failures should be expected. There's not one child who's gone through, or one adult who's gone through the martial arts journey who hasn't wanted to quit. And I explain this to parents all the time. There's not one day where I'm not having to deal with a conference where a child wants to quit. And I expect it almost. And it's our ability to talk them through it and talk about what the challenges are and help them problem solve that helps them navigate their way through it and get to the achievement of whatever they're looking to get, of their goals. So supporting your child through the challenges is really important, and not allowing them to quit just because they're unhappy, because unhappiness is a part of life, right? But having them figure out a way to fix the problem and get through it and finish what you say you're going to start is really powerful. So in the world of like immediate gratification and participation trophies, I think it's really powerful to put your child in a program, whether it's martial arts or it's any type of extracurricular activity. It doesn't matter what it is, right? But to have them get into it, face challenges, finish what they start, start something new and persevere through it. Those are the things that are really character building for children. And perseverance can only develop through the discomfort of starting something new, getting through challenges, and the ability to kind of grit your way through all of those things. And I know parents have a really hard time with making their kids uncomfortable. It's tough. You don't want your kids to be, unhappy in a situation. And I mean, I feel like our own childhoods kind of like lend to that. So we've had to deal with a lot of discomfort. And so we want to save our kids from having to deal with that. And again, if we don't give them that opportunity or those like learning experiences, we're robbing them of the development of perseverance and grit. So it's a balance of of course you don't want to put your kid in a situation where they're going to suffer in their self-esteem, but you have to figure out a way where they're challenged and they're uncomfortable to the point where they're able to persevere and kind of gain those characteristics. So understanding your child and knowing what they're capable of and knowing what you're looking to get for them is really important in deciding what activities and what you're going to put them in and how you're going to develop these ideas of perseverance and grit, which I think are so important in the way of like developing characteristics for a strong child, not physically, but mentally and emotionally. So I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Black Belt Parenting Podcast. Please let me know what you're doing to develop perseverance and grit in your child. I'd love to share it with the other parents. Anything is good. Anything as a community that we can share together to develop strong and powerful kids emotionally and mentally is wonderful, especially in this world today. And if you'd like to learn more information on how we do it in the martial arts school, you can look at the blackbeltparentingpodcast.com website or follow us on any social media platforms you're enjoying this on. Remember, stay resilient, be kind and compassionate to yourself, and keep nurturing those Black Belt parenting skills. The Black Belt Parenting Podcast is produced and recorded by Press Record Studios.